I'd like to spend, but we've got Jeremy ready. But before I get to Jeremy, I've got just a couple slides to kind of tee it up. And so I'm going to move through those quickly in the interest of time. And let me share that screen with you guys. Jeremy, just hang with us for another moment or two. Andrew started talking through some of the possible replacements, and I would say, as we move to building the phase, right, and we kind of think about everything in three, right? So when we think about implementing process automation at BP3, we often would talk about it in terms of start it, solve it, scale it, right? So we do the discovery, start it. We, then we build something, and that's the solve it phase, right? We're just going to solve the problem. And then you think about scaling it. How do I go and take this technique and approach further and out into the wild? And when you look at implementation choices, things you could do to implement those processes, right? One is status quo. I don't implement any new software, right? I just do the best I can with the systems I've got. And I retrain people. I tell them how to use the system a different way, how to do their job a different way. This is frankly what people did for, many, many years before process software came about, before decisioning software came about. Another option, and it gets all the shimmer because, it's very hot right now, right, is the idea of doing low code, no code, right? You don't have to write any code. Everyone can do this stuff. It's very appealing from that point of view because it seems like literally anyone can be a developer. That's the idea. I would say that, the challenges with low code or no code is that because they are general tools, right, they tend to solve general problems, and when you have a specific problem, they don't do a very good job of it. And there are little things to watch out for when you're looking at something, that feels like a low code, no code answer. One is, did the folks who are building that low code, no code solution, or they're offering it to you, what did they build their solution in, right? They probably didn't build it with a low code, no code tool. So the takeaway is, if they can't build their own software with it, there are limitations on what you can build, right? It's not literally anything that you can build or should be built that way. Or there are better ways to build certain kinds of applications that are using different platforms. I think another issue to worry about is death by property sheet in these kinds of applications. And you'll see it when they pull up like the 40th property sheet to show you how to implement your process in their platform, then you're in that vein. And if you hear the word scripting, right, that is a keyword that means code, but it sounds less dangerous than coding, right? And so when you see a property field in an interface, and then they're starting to type some JavaScript in there, some other kind of scripting language, okay, you're writing code now. And I think at the end of the day, sort of my simplification on this is simply that if it's complicated enough, then code is actually the right way to solve the problem. And if it's not complicated enough, then a low code or no code solution will really work well. But it takes a lot of experience and judgment to pick that right. And the other comment I'd make is that when you have a purpose-built, a very narrowly defined tool that is low code or no code, it's easier to hit the mark, right? Because you have a defined audience, they're using the tools in a specific way, and then you can really nail the problem down. All right, let me hit the right button here. Another option is RPA, right? I've got my revised process. Some of that process is simply automating stuff that people on our team are doing, and I can get that specific task automation. I think that's effective. The things to watch out for, obviously, are that the connections between those activities are not necessarily managed or orchestrated if you don't have an overall process driving it. And you may want to use something like process mining to check that actual behaviors in the field or in the wild are matching the design of the process you produced. So you may need a way to validate or check for compliance that you might not need if you had an orchestrating entity driving it. Now, there are more implementation choices because 3 isn't enough, right? You can also go with the walled gardens. Andrew talked about that a little bit. I think there are a number of issues with walled garden implementations. I think key thing to me, I apologize, I've got a couple notes to keep me on track. But a key thing to me is that, you could use Salesforce, ServiceNow, Workday, SAP. You can use these things to solve process problems. And in fact, a lot of companies have decided on a Salesforce first or ServiceNow first. Like, if there's a new problem, implement it in that platform first, regardless of how well it fits, right? We've decided on what our implementation platform for applications is in general. And we've seen things like this before. In the 90s, it was SAP for many American companies. It was implement on SAP, otherwise don't do it. And the challenge is that these systems at their core are systems of record with the ability to edit and manage the data therein, right? And so the point of any process inside these systems is generally to react to a change inside that system, run a process inside that system, change data within that system, right? There's no leaving, Salesforce or ServiceNow to affect other systems. There's also often a limitation in terms of the volume or scale that can be handled, because if you write a process and you throw it onto Salesforce and you scale it up, if it impacts your ability to run Salesforce, that's your CRM, your sales system, right? So it doesn't isolate properly the concerns. And I think a core engineering principle that Andrew and our team fully believe in is that you have to separate process from your applications, and you have to separate decisions from your applications so that they can be addressed and improved and changed iteratively and independently of your applications. And those are things that walled garden approaches don't really address well. And finally, in the last two, there are things that are much more BPMN oriented, right? The DPA platforms, digital process automation platforms, and process engines, right? And really, the process engine is a slimmed down version of that DPA platform, where the platform will come with things, some elements of low code, right? Drag and drop UI, maybe drag and drop database definitions, things like that, which can be quite handy. But the process engine approach basically says, well, you solve that database problem the way you want, solve the UI problem the way you want. We're going to focus on delivering a great process engine to you, and then you can build it into whatever applications you're building. And I think those techniques are really independently interesting. And we certainly have built great solutions with all of these techniques for our customers. So this isn't about what's good or bad. It's really about understanding the limitations and how these decisions can affect the way you go forward with the process. Now, having said that, I think it'd be a great idea to talk to Jeremy Warren about his own experience, and how we provide processes for regular people at Keller Williams, where there are hundreds of thousands of real estate agents running around who are very entrepreneurial and they want to solve their own business problems. And in effect, part of Keller Williams' mission is to support those agents in pursuing their entrepreneurial dreams and building their business. And a few of the stats from Keller Williams that I've borrowed from a presentation Jeremy's given before. And Jeremy leads their automation effort. Jeremy, I'm going to stop sharing and cut over to just the panel now. Anything you say just to introduce folks who are listening to, what Keller Williams does and what your mission is to support them?
Right. Yeah. Hey, so great to be here. Thanks so much for having me. It's really good to see everyone. Right. So, Keller Williams made their name as kind of the largest real estate franchise in the world. And they've been around since, 1983. But in the past 3 years, we've really, kind of shifted completely to, digital automation, if you want to call it, and just, becoming a true technology company. So our goal at Keller Williams is to, just be a technology company that provides kind of an industry leading platform for real estate agents and consumers. So that means not just the real estate agents themselves, but also kind of the consumer, the everyday home buyer, give them an app that they can use to search for homes in their neighborhood and feed that data right back to the agent to help create, essentially the best experience possible.
Well, if you have to, really boil it down, what's the key problem that you're solving for a real estate agent?
So the key problem is kind of twofold. One is that real estate agents, it's a very self-starter type of business. Almost anybody can become a real estate agent with, a little bit of effort. So you have a very wide range of people who are different skills and different levels of technical literacy. So because of that, there's also a lot of disparate software solutions that are out there. So there's, real estate agents can kind of run their business in whatever way they see fit. And as they grow and they scale, eventually some of them find themselves having, 10 different software licenses for everything from managing their, marketing campaigns to, managing their contacts database to, kind of generating leads or marketing on Facebook. So basically the problem that we're trying to solve is create a platform specific to the real estate industry that kind of is the one-stop shop for, any agent. It's highly customizable. It's very specific to the real estate industry. And it's just kind of a CRM that the agents can use themselves to manage and, kind of optimize their business, as well as that they can, provide a consumer app that, all of their clients, people looking to buy houses can also use. And those are, kind of an interconnected experience that kind of feed data to each other and help create the best experience possible for buying a home.
No, that's great. I mean, you guys, I think one thing I love is you guys have a very clear mission, for how to help your agents. And, something that's really different is, when your agents adopt software, you're not forcing them to use it, right? Like they're actually independent business people. So you can't make them use it. Do they actually pay to use the process software you guys are rolling out?
Yeah, so they do, and kind of that's our goal is we have to kind of as a corporate entity we have to compete with all of the other software solutions and platforms that are out there, right? We have to compete with the MailChimps or the Twilio or whoever, and we do have partnerships with some of those companies, Mailgun, Twilio, Google and Facebook, try to combine all of those things together. But yeah, we do have to compete and, with those and basically sell our software, to the agents and let them know that, using it is kind of the best experience possible for them.
Yeah, I think it's kind of liberating, right? Because, that people, if they're using it because they see value, right? Yeah. And if the rest of us, right, as we're rolling out solutions, if you just think about if your employees had to pay to use the software you're putting in front of them, would they, right? Would they pay for that instead of the old way or instead of some other alternate way of getting the job done? That's a really different lens to see it through, right?
Yeah. Well, there's a kind of a funny, not too much off topic anecdote, but, we heard that, right when all of the COVID stuff hit, Google's kind of, can be famous for, sunsetting a lot of products and stuff like that. But basically everybody started using Google Meet. And they saw more improvements in Google Meet because all of their employees actually started using it when the COVID stuff hit, Right. So it's like in such a short amount of time, but that type of stuff definitely happens.
I completely believe it. Now remind me, how many agents are impacted by Smart Plans?
Right. Well, so Smart Plans is kind of an applet within Command itself. And so Command is the, basically CRM. That's the agent-facing application. We do have a consumer app. It's a mobile app for the consumers. But Command is kind of the agent CRM. And Smart Plans is an applet within there that kind of is a more or less a workflow orchestrator across kind of the other different applets. So Keller Williams has about 180,000, real estate agents total. I'd say between 60 and 100,000 actually like use Command pretty regularly, and so somewhere around those have all used Smart Plans or tasks functionality, which is kind of what our little section of Command does at one point. So they're definitely kind of some use it more than others, but we've definitely seen kind of close to 80,000 or so unique users of just Smart Plans alone. Mm-hmm.
No, that's amazing. That's amazing adoption. Yeah. And I know I get emails from Keller Williams agents, some friends of mine, and at some point I started noticing they were sending me emails using Smart Plans, right? Like I could identify that's what it was coming from, and I started asking them about it. Hey, when did you start using this? And they were kind of like mind blown that this is something that we worked on together to produce for them. They're really kind of excited about it. I guess it seems to me that it's been received really well and widely adopted. The numbers back that up, but how do you get all of these people to use process without telling them it's a process?
Right. So, I mean, definitely iteratively, we've been at this, I guess, kind of for a little over a year, but kind of the history of, Smart Plans is actually a little longer than that. Tried a number of different kind of low code solutions, kind of completely custom solution that wasn't workflow specific at all, to try to get this built, and definitely ran into some challenges as kind of a, young technology company does to an extent. So the way that we started was just doing templates. So we defined a couple of very static Smart Plans that were, built by very experienced agents at Keller Williams and had a lot of marketing input. But basically said, this is the core of like what we, what we want. And, we didn't give the agents the ability to customize them originally, but because they were pretty static, but we said, you can use these out of the box and they'll essentially, deliver value. And that's the first step that we'll approach. So then kind of once we, hardened up the application and, see how it was being used, we're able to get all of the kind of error handling scenarios, since these are long running scenarios, and we're basically orchestrating calls across, hundreds of different microservices, within our, infrastructure, then we, are basically able to kind of gradually open up the guardrails, and allow agents to do a little bit more dynamic customization. So basically it's kind of just, we give them a set of building blocks and we say that you can assemble those building blocks any way you want. The content of those building blocks, whether it be a task or an email or a text message, or, link it to another smart plan, anything like that. They have full control over that. And we've designed the workflow such that there are guardrails that kind of keep them in check from both a performance perspective and kind of a business rules perspective. But yeah, we've been able to kind of iteratively get to a point where they can kind of just build their own workflows.
So, Jeremy, and that kind of brings up, this is a question I was actually asked earlier in the session today, around citizen developers. I mean, that's what you have here. That's what these real estate agents are. They have.
Oh yeah.
The technology you provide is like any other platform. It could have been service. It could have been whatever, ServiceNow or anything else.
Yeah.
But because of what Command is, right? So you basically enable the citizen developer community already out there with the real estate agents. So they're not coders by trade, right? Yeah. They sell homes. Yeah. They try to get people and homes together, but they are building their application specific to them and the workflow specific to them around all things marketing and campaigns. Yeah. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And the cool thing is that now we have, essentially kind of a whole Command, library where agents who, you have, like I said, there's agents that have all sorts of different skill sets. So you have some of these agents that are very technically literate, and they are basically, you could call them the top, smart plans developers, right? And so what they essentially do is they build a smart plan and they say, this is the smart plan that I use, when I get a new contact. And this is the smart plan that I use when I'm following up from an open house. And they upload those to a community library that everybody has access to. And so we basically give, have a community library that has a 5-star rating system. We have download counts and everything, where if you're a new agent and you don't know how to use smart plans, or you don't know how to use this thing, and it's kind of a foreign concept to you, you can just go to the library and see, hey, here's the top downloaded plan. This one has the most stars. A bunch of people say that this is, an awesome plan. I can just download it and start using it and not really even know that there's, any sort of workflow or process behind it. You just know that that's what the top agents use and that they've had success doing that.
And so it's also fair to say, without that kind of citizen developer notion on the part of the real estate agents, there is no possible way you guys could have ever created every permutation of every part, right? I mean, that's just right
absolutely
off the
not.
table.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely not. And yeah.
Yeah, so about scale, as part of adoption, as part of what capabilities are actually in the product, they are defining and building some of their own capabilities around this. And the governance that you have is really, like you said, the guardrails to kind of make sure that you're able to enforce and control so people can't really go off the rails with it.
Yeah.
A lot of ability to create.
Sorry, you broke up there a little bit at the end, Lance.
I'd say, so the governance model that you have in Command and within smart plans, it really allows folks to be able to be creative without doing something that would jeopardize or create an issue that ultimately you may have to own, as at that point you're kind of IT support, right? Or at least some segment of the team is.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So the whole kind of tagline of Command is, by agents for agents, right? This is software, built by real estate agents, for real estate agents, and most of our requirements come directly from, the top performers, essentially, people that are, selling a lot of homes, and those are the model that kind of we encourage most of the other agents to follow. Like, if you want to be successful selling real estate, this is how you do. But 100%, we absolutely have to have the guardrails. And we had in a past implementation, before we started using Camunda and workflow, and before BP3 was brought on to kind of help help with this implementation. They did have, a bit of an issue where they kind of had a low code workflow system that they embedded kind of directly into the UI. And we had basically an agent apparently create a loop and, generate like 100,000 tasks in like the span of a few minutes, and just brought down the whole system. So, those guardrails are important, not just for, for performance, reasons and, scalability reasons. But yeah, we do have to keep the agents in check, because there are some that would probably kind of go a bit crazy with it if we didn't.
I think that's a really good cautionary note for anyone who missed it, is that, that idea that, look, putting low code solutions into everybody's hands, you run a few risks, right, around governance and overproduction, and then also, just taking down the system, right? And by tailoring a solution to the real estate agents, right, you've both enabled people who really don't want to write it. They don't want to write their own solution. They want to leverage something. And you've enabled people who do want to write their own solution to really get that process, that symbiotic process of learning going, to learn from those best agents and turn that into software. So I think it's really kind of a nice virtuous cycle you guys have going there. I should give a minute for you to tell us, okay, like, it sounds good. The real estate agents have this relatively easy thing to do now. They can configure their process. They may not even know it's a process. You've made it that easy to use. Behind the scenes, what are you guys really using, right? Like, what's the architecture infrastructure kind of look like?
Yeah. So, I mean, behind the scenes, there's kind of a lot going on. The reason we settled on Camunda essentially was, just its flexibility and our ability to kind of, leverage this platform. Camunda has this awesome pattern, called the external task pattern, where you can, essentially have, a worker that, runs outside of Camunda that can orchestrate a number of calls where, the actual processing of the task, right? So if we want to send an email, there's a couple things that we have to do. We have to get agent details. We have to get contact details. We have to get the email template that they want to send. We have to fill in any sort of merge tags that we need. And then we actually have to, kind of send the email. We have to write to the timeline, to the contacts timeline. So there's a number of essentially, steps that we have to do. And, when you're modeling a process like that, really, the step kind of there, for the agents is just send email, right? That's the step in the workflow. So, when we model the workflow, we have a couple of these building block steps. They send email, send text message, create task, delay, link to another smart plan. So we have, a set of steps, but, the actual logic is essentially orchestrating, a lot of microservice calls across kind of our, our infrastructure. So we run in Google Cloud, and everything is, kind of Kubernetes. We have everything Dockerized, and kind of close to 300 microservices that run within command to kind of connect all this stuff together. So that's kind of, there's definitely a lot happening in the background. Yeah.
It's very buzzword compliant.
Yes,
as well.
Exactly.
Hey, I got a couple of questions from the chat that I wanted to kind of run by you. One is a request, not for right this second, but maybe see if I can get a commitment out of you to share. One of our attendees has asked, can we have a working example demo of how this works and what it looks like? Do you think we can later share a recording with our attendees?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's I think there's a couple of examples online, and then yeah, we could do a short video. We definitely have access to that. So yeah, it'd be super easy to kind of share a demo. No issues with that. Yeah.
That would be awesome, and I think would be really appreciated. And we didn't make time for it today because we really wanted to talk about the business angle and how you guys think about this. Mm-hmm. But maybe the other question that was asked, I think, is there was an interesting angle around this, and it was about, if I'm using a low-code solution, how do I handle major upgrades? Mm-hmm. And I think the context of the question might have been more around IBM BPM, but just looking at how you guys have done it, when you have a major upgrade that you want to make, how do you think about the impacts to the real estate agent who has to define their whole workflow around the previous version, right?
Yeah.
How do you deal with both from a UI or an engine or a process point of view? How do those things interplay?
Right. No, so it's a great question, and it's something that we've definitely worked a lot on, this concept of, how do you handle these, process instance migrations or, stuff like that. We've tried, very hard to kind of, avoid those. So we have kind of two different ways that an agent can interact with a smart plan. Once they have contacts that are actively running on a smart plan, if they want to actually edit it, if they want to edit it in flight, kind of we allow them to open it up in what we call like a simple edit mode, where they can edit, they can't change the order of the steps or the number of steps, but that are in the plan, but they can change the content of each step, right? So if at step 4, you're sending a text message, then, they can change that text message, no problems. But, if they are, but then, they can make a kind of complete copy of that plan and kind of start from scratch and assemble things, in whatever way they see fit. But yeah, from an upgrade perspective, there's the platform upgrade, which is, generally, not too big of a deal. We haven't had any issues with updating like versions of our software. But yeah, for us, it's, if we ever introduce any breaking changes to the actual workflow itself. So we've built the workflow itself to be fairly abstract enough to where we're pretty confident that we're only going to be like adding steps. We haven't really taken anything away, but yeah, it's just kind of it's all business planning, and it just all comes down to essentially planning with with the business and doing the impact analysis and figuring out if this is something that you have to introduce breaking changes for, how you handle the migration of that stuff, and so it's really just comes down to general requirements gathering and business trade-offs for that.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a risk in general when you use a generalized low-code platform, right, that they might change their user interface paradigm or some other major feature. And I guess the thing that if you're going to produce a low-code solution, which effectively you guys have for your agents, one of the responsibilities you take on is if we produce a new user interface, that it is still configurable and we can bring the old configurations forward, if you will, right? So that,
definitely.
It looks different, but the functionality is preserved or brought forward as much as reasonable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, one last question: how has, in your view, this project, and I shouldn't say project, really program around automation, how has this impacted Keller Williams' view of the value of process to their business?
So I mean, I think that it's something that they, that they saw the value of very, very quickly. So Smart Plan started off as just an agent, each instance of a smart plan is an agent to a contact, a single contact. That's kind of an instance of a smart plan. But we're rapidly evolving what a smart plan is inside of Keller Williams and what workflow is inside of Keller Williams. So kind of the next step is and it's already being used today, but because Keller Williams is in a franchise model, we have, market centers, all around the US, and those are individual entities that, each person is kind of responsible for running. So we kind of have smart plans for market centers as well, where they can basically, how they actually run the market center or recruit agents to come onto their market center is kind of a whole workflow conversation. And, there's other areas like agent onboarding, right? With BPMN software, onboarding is one of the, age-old use cases. It's been around for forever, and workflow right there, just, it fits right in. So, we're starting definitely to see a lot of, a lot of similar concepts and a lot of utility for kind of like, a business automation, platform within Keller Williams to do, all sorts of things rather than just, kind of, what we built it for, for the smart plans right now. Yeah.
Right. We had one more question from the audience. Lance, anything you want to jump in with before I?
No, just wanted to say thanks, Jeremy, again for that overview. That was awesome.
Awesome.
So I'll let you get the question answered.
All right, one more, and it is, that you mentioned orchestrating hundreds of microservices. How troublesome was that, Jeremy?
We've definitely had no shortage of issues. I mean, so, the biggest challenge for us for smart plans and what it really does actually is kind of handle errors and categorize errors. And because these are long running plans. And so, just because the contact service was down on Tuesday at 12 o'clock doesn't mean the entire smart plan or workflow should end. So the biggest piece and the biggest hurdle for us was basically understanding how we wanted to categorize and handle errors and what our retry patterns essentially looked like, right? So it was essentially, Camunda makes this quite easy to do. Actually, we have kind of a very robust incident handling pattern where we can kind of, categorize, the types of errors that we get, understand if it's an error because the service was down or if it's a valid business error that, that needs to be handled. And, we just kind of, build that right into our code and into our incident handling pattern as they come up. So, we have a whole process now of categorizing, how failures are, generated. And if it's a new type of failure that we haven't seen, then we kind of go to the business and say, how do we want to handle this scenario? But that's just kind of an ongoing process. But yeah, I mean, it's, microservices has their own, like every software architecture, there's, trade-offs, et cetera. And so it's no shortage of problems, but yeah, we've kind of evolved to basically, handle those failures and kind of be pretty resilient towards any sort of failures that we see, and keep these plans running so that they don't just kind of end abruptly just because one service is down at some point.
Yeah.
Automating the automation.
Yep.
I will plug that tomorrow we're going to be talking about this. Of course,
dog has other ideas. This is the world we live in now, right?
And she is feeding the dog. Yes. Are you good now, Chris?
She has to wait probably.
Tomorrow we'll actually be talking about the microservices architecture and orchestrating hundreds of microservices. The FedEx guy shows up right at the most inconvenient time.
Yeah, it's it is interesting. It is something we see more and more, Jeremy, are these patterns around microservices and Docker and Kubernetes, and so just a lot of ways to achieve scale and velocity in the development process. But it also means we have to really think. I like the way you framed it, that it's not just a technical problem to overcome, but you're also having to work with the business about how to handle those issues the right for the business, right? Mm-hmm. And I think for anyone listening, I mean, part of what we love about working with Jeremy, and for those who don't know, he worked with us for many years before going to Keller Williams to lead their automation team there. He is one of those unicorns that is very deeply technical and cares about the technical solution and all of those details, but he also cares about the business and the business value and the value that they're creating with process. And that is the thing that really drives a successful business process outcome, right? Or process automation outcome. Not to mention he grows a mean COVID beard. So I understand. It's like a playoff beard, only in reverse. I think you exactly. wait till we get a vaccine and then shave. Is that the?
Pretty much, that's the goal.
Well, Jeremy, I can't thank you enough for joining us. Yeah. As always, it is a pleasure to work with you and to talk to you about what you do and your craft. And I love the way Keller Williams thinks about, process, and I love the way they think about enabling the entrepreneurial spirit that is out there in their agents, in that family of agents. I think that's just really fantastic.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for having me. It's great to see you guys. And Keller Williams wouldn't be where they are right now with process without the help of BP3. And so really, kind of appreciate all you guys and kind of the awesome work that you do. And it's great to see everyone.
Thanks, you man. Bet. Yeah. Thank you,
Jeremy. Well, we as a session today, we're a little over time, which is no surprise. If you know me and Lance, you know that we can occasionally go overtime. And just some final thoughts to wrap up. I think after talking through this, right, we do live in a world that still needs processes and operational excellence. You can hear it in the conversation with Jeremy how much it matters to their business, and in the questions that we got through Q&A. I think the other thing, we didn't really talk about this earlier, but I just want to leave you with some of these thoughts, is even digital first companies need process, right? There are a lot of massive operating companies that started in the 2000s, right? That started after the 1990s wave of process reengineering, that maybe were too small during the 2000s to really worry about implementing business process automation technologies at that point. But now they're big companies, right? And among those is, a little company everyone's heard of, Salesforce, right? Like they're a huge company now. But in the early 2000s, right, they were the no software company, and you don't need software or installs or any of that jazz. I will say there's some irony in that we had to do a Salesforce upgrade the other day, i.e. stop using Salesforce for 2 days to upgrade. I thought it's supposed to be SaaS, and you guys just do all this stuff for us, right? So, there's everybody has some work to do on process and operational excellence, even companies that we consider new, right? And another sort of funny thing is, Salesforce, which so many of us use, is older than BPMN, right? So, sometimes the UI looks like that. And the other takeaway is the technologies change, but business is about people. Business doesn't change as fast as technology. How you go to market, how you transact, all that stuff can change. But at the end of the day, it's so much about people and how you relate to each other and creating value for them in their lives. And process is a big part of that. I think RPA and AI are both game changers for process. And one comment I'll make about AI is that although we didn't talk about it a lot explicitly in this session, we did it on Monday. And so if you missed Monday's session, I definitely recommend you watch it. But a key element to many AI implementations is that it lacks a practical application, right? You apply it, you do a bunch of machine learning, and it can draw a bunch of conclusions. But what I want to do is then what, right? I have the conclusion, I have the insight, I now want to act on that. And that's where marrying AI with RPA or with a process puts it into your business operational context, right? So we can actually change the way your business operates using the insights we get from AI. I think the walled garden, the risk of putting your processes in walled gardens is to perpetuate the sort of siloed view of the world. My CRM system has processes and my finance system has processes, my HR system has processes, and they don't touch each other. But if you think about situations like if I introduce a new product, well, that implies I need new organization in HR to support that product. I need potentially to charge for it differently in my finance realm, and I need to account for it separately in finances, both the revenue and the expense. And it implies changes to our fulfillment, right, and how we do it, CRM. So introducing a new product or a new service or a new revenue stream can change all of those walled gardens. And to think that the processes only exist within each silo, I think is limiting your potential for your processes and for your business and your operational excellence. And then lastly, with low code, no code, just proceed with caution, right? Talk to BP3 if you haven't. These are things that we're expert in helping figure out, helping our clients think through. And we are by no means anti low code, no code. Like I love a drag and drop UI builder and building databases, drag and drop and things like that. They're great ways to get started and sometimes great ways to build solutions. But also there are limitations, and you've got to know what those are going in so that you don't paint yourself into the corner. And that, those are kind of my final thoughts. Lance, anything you want to add to that?
No, not at all. I think, again, Jeremy brought home on, what some of these definitions I get, like low code, no code system developer. I think, all these things are kind of still getting defined as we go, right? When it comes to process automation, I mean, all of these things have process mining, Lean Six, low code, no code, RPA, AI, all of it has a.
Well, I think that's a good point. It's all evolving, and all of that evolution. You just have different ways to implement your process, different options for how to improve it, and you just don't want to get stuck. So, well, guys, I hope you enjoyed the day and enjoyed joining us for this conversation. I look forward to, seeing you in a situation more like the one we have in the picture on the right there, just enjoying a little happy hour opportunity. Someday in our future, we'll be getting together in person again, and just really appreciate everyone joining us today for Process Day. And tomorrow, we'll focus on application modernization, and we tackle those problems with a process lens, but I think you'll find there's some great content there for how to build solutions around the ideas of process.